Hello everyone, today we will have 3 interesting stories. Before we get to that, I want to ask you to subscribe, like, and be sure to write comments in order to participate in the development of the community. Write how to improve my community, current topics in the stories you are interested in, and much more. I read and listen to all the comments. People write me stories by mail from different countries. There are problems with translation. I apologize for this. I will work on it and try to fix these errors. I want to thank everyone for their support and the people who wrote to me by mail. Broadcast news stories. New videos on my channel are published every 2 days at 7 p.m. Don't forget to put a bell in order not to miss new videos. And now let's go. Hello, I want to tell you my story. I met my wife when I was 20 years old and my wife was 17 years old. At that time, I had a very stormy life in terms of girls and sex. I was my wife's first man. During the first year of our relationship, my turbulent life was gradually reduced to 0. After that, she moved in with me and we started living together. 3 years later, my wife became pregnant. We were both prepared for this turn of events. We legalized our marriage and we had a daughter. In general, we were a very happy family. A year after the birth of our daughter, a man suggests that I start my own business. Let's call this man Harry. He was a sponsor and I was developing our business because I had worked in a similar field for a very long time before that. I dedicate my wife to work and introduce her to Harry. 4 months later, I noticed my wife's strange behavior. She had never left her mail open before. Even if I accidentally stumbled upon my wife's email, it never happened that all messages were deleted. She also talked on the phone a lot and I could never get through to her. To the question, who did you talk to for so long? My wife's response has always been very stupid. Her mobile phone often started to turn off accidentally, even though I knew that when she traveled on public transport, she always listened to music. In general, there were a lot of cases for suspicion. But the last situation that happened finished me off and I couldn't stand it. We were spending time with our whole family at that moment. My wife received a call on her mobile phone. She got nervous and didn't answer the phone. When I asked who it was, as always, she couldn't answer clearly. I was very angry and after 15 minutes I asked her for her mobile phone. I said I needed to make a call because my phone was dead. I was very surprised because she immediately gave me her mobile phone without much resistance. All incoming and outgoing messages have been deleted. I couldn't figure out when she managed to do it. The moment of exposure came and it was so, I installed a program on my laptop that remembered everything that was entered on the keyboard. The result was not long in coming. The next day, when I opened the program, I saw something like this text. I quote, "I look at your intimate photos and I want you. I'm looking forward to our meeting. I am looking forward to our meeting." I understood from the text that it was Harry. I'll tell you honestly, I was shaved for 2 hours. Fortunately, my wife was not at home. I calmed down and decided to check if it was true or not. In general, I lasted 2 days. I was shaking all the time, but I gathered my thoughts and decided to put all the dots. I came home from work very late. My wife was already asleep. I took her mobile phone and saw a familiar number. It was Harry and he talked to my wife for 2 hours. This dialogue ended 10 minutes before I came home. I opened a bottle of whiskey and woke up my wife. I told her everything to her face. My wife calmly replied that their affair lasted a month and they had sex twice in a rented apartment. When I asked, "How could you do this to me?" her answer shocked me. She said she just wanted to try another man for comparison. As I told you above, I was her first. Since not all girls can have sex with the first person they meet, Harry falls into this category. I listened to all this carefully and filed for divorce the next day. We got divorced quickly without much difficulty. My daughter was left with her mother, but I visit her every weekend. My wife is trying to get our relationship back, but I can't live with a girl like that. I will never forgive her for this action. That was the end of the first story. Let's get to the second short story. Let's go. I've been living with my wife for almost 9 years. We had a very strong and true love. I trusted my wife more than I trusted myself. 5 years later, our son was born. I started working overtime to support my family. Because of this, I began to pay less attention to my wife. I plunged into my work with my head and built our family future. Moreover, I did not love my wife less. My work is creative, so I communicate with a lot of people, but at the same time, I've never cheated on my wife. I've never even had such thoughts. The thunder broke at the end of February. By the way, in all our lives together, I have never checked my wife's social media and mobile phone. I trusted my wife infinitely. It all started with the fact that I accidentally discovered 2 erotic photos on my wife's social networks. My wife put these photos on public display. When I read the comments under these photos, I was shocked. But then there was more. These were deleted dialogues with unknown men. At that moment, I was carried away and began sifting through the entire internet life through a sieve. My wife had many different men as friends on social media. As a result, I came across my wife's profile on a dating site. She's been registered there since February 2010. Her profile indicated that she was looking for a companion for non-committal sex. Then my wife told me that she was just bored and she was chatting. I don't believe her. Her daughter from first marriage, whom I raised from the beginning of our life together, told me that her mother confessed to her on New Year's Eve that she had cheated once. But she loves me anyway. After a couple of serious conversations, my wife admitted that it was true. Generally, my wife and I are from different cities and my wife periodically went to her mother. Of course, I do not know what she was doing there. Because she spent the night in different places, sometimes at her mom's, then at her dad's, then at her friend's. My world collapsed under my feet. I couldn't work for almost 2 months. My wife is crying and swears that it was once, but I don't believe her. There are some other facts that I would not like to disclose here. But I think what I've told you is enough. I'm trying to survive and make the right decision. I love my son very much. He is 4 years old. I still love my wife, but I can't live with her like I used to. I feel the presence of another person. In general, I can't explain it correctly so that you understand. I know I have to file for divorce, but something stops me. In general, I still live with my wife. We don't have sex and love anymore. It's like we're roommates. We live for the sake of our son. I think he will grow up and I will file for divorce. This is the end of the second story. Now let's move on to the third short story. Let's go. I've lived with my wife for 6 years. We were married for 2.5 years. I used to go on business trips a lot and our life boiled down to the fact that while we were not together, we missed each other very much. When I returned home, we enjoyed each other. 1.5 years ago, I stopped leaving for a long time. I made that decision myself and talked to my boss. I decided that was enough because I needed to spend more time with my family. Earlier, when I was leaving, my wife tried to do everything she could. Driving school, French language classes, and so on. She called me all the time and said she missed me. She had no one to chat with and spend time with, and so we stopped breaking up. But everything had already gone wrong. Maybe it was a crisis in the relationship, I do not know. Plus, we couldn't conceive a child. We tried very hard and wanted a child. I was promoted and had additional responsibilities. But I didn't care because I was glad for a bigger salary. I thought I could bring more money to the family. I stayed late at work, but only so that we wouldn't refuse anything. As a result, I returned home and saw my wife standing in a doggy-style pose. The man stood behind her and held her buttocks. I remember well how hard he squeezed her buttocks. I was shocked and angry. I took the bat and threw them both out into the street. In general, my wife cried and asked for forgiveness. She was standing naked outside the door and all the neighbors were shocked. After 20 minutes, I felt sorry for her and let her into the apartment. She was hysterical all night. At the same time, I sat and drank all night. I remember how she justified herself. She said that I had forgotten her and stopped seeing her as a girl. That's why she stopped loving me 1 year ago, but she tried to keep our relationship going. She gave herself to this guy because he knew how to listen to her. I looked into her eyes and didn't even see remorse. 3 days later, we divorced. For 2 months, I couldn't find a place for myself. At the same time, my wife was calling me nonstop. As a result, I came to my senses and started a new life. My wife stopped calling. Maybe she started a new life too. I've got a new girl, but we're not in a hurry up and we're just having a great time together. In general, friends, if you notice something strange, immediately check everything because girls are very insidious and ever after many years of living together, they can change you. Maybe your wife has already cheated and you don't even know about it. If you like these stories, give a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. so as not to miss new videos. Now let's move on to the opinion of the author of the channel. The opinion of the author of the channel, according to tradition, I want to wish strength and patience to our heroes. Each story is unique, but the main thing is that the guys realize their mistakes. Of course, regarding the second story, this is not entirely true. If I were you, I would leave my wife. You don't have to live with a traitor. You need to waste no time and move on. Of course, you may have stayed for the sake of the child, and that's wonderful. But remember, in no case, do not ruin your life for the sake of the person who betrayed you. Perhaps our community will leave their comments and advise you something, and you will see other people's opinions. Maybe someone will say that I'm wrong, but this is the essence of the whole discussion. I am speaking exclusively my opinion, and in no case am calling anyone to anything. If you have watched to the end, I want to say thank you very much. I love you all. Thank you for joining me on this exciting journey of love, betrayal, and redemption. I appreciate your support and encourage you to subscribe, like, and share this story. Your participation and feedback are invaluable for shaping our content and promoting mutual understanding and community growth. Until we meet again.